Okay, Assalamu alaikum all. Today I'm going to be talking about how to remember language with active recall. Now, there's a really famous book out there called Make It Stick, which is all about study techniques and things like that and how you can remember things. And a lot of these techniques, they don't teach you at school, which is why, I've kind of learned these just by seeing the book and seeing YouTube channels and things like that. And it's amazing and really important for language learning. So I'm going to talk about that today. Welcome. On this channel, I share my journey learning languages as a Muslim. The first thing I want to say is that we don't learn the best study techniques at school. School kind of teaches you stuff, but doesn't really talk about how to study, what's the best way to study and things like that. And I used to previously think that, there's only one way to study. You just got to read and just answer some exam questions and things like that. But I am so wrong, because that is not the best way to sort of study. There is much more advanced and more modern way of doing that will save you time and things like that, rather than just writing stuff up, highlighting, summarizing and things like that. Those are really kind of just things that people do, like no one teaches you how to study. And what I want to talk about today is active recall, which is a type of studying that is like very famous, like kind of all over the YouTube, but a lot of people might not have heard about it because it's not kind of taught to you just willy-nilly, just here and there. And what's this based on is self-testing. So rather than just like reading information and just trying to kind of, summarize it or highlighting and things like that, the idea is you sort of almost just write questions for yourself and then you have to sort of answer those questions. So what you will do is, like, for example, I'm learning like French, so I might be learning like how to say the different sort of verbs and things like that. So the verb avoir means to have. So, I might say j'ai voiture means I have a car. So how do you say you have a car? That's toi voiture means you have a car. Or how do you say they have a car? So there's various ways to say, they. So it could be ils vont un car, ils ont un car. So there's like different ways to kind of say things. So it's just about kind of like practicing and stuff like that. So what you do is you kind of practice based on questions and you provide answers. And this isn't just about writing notes, it's about writing questions and almost like flashcards basically, and then kind of using those to test yourself. So you kind of have like a question at the front and then you've got to try and remember what it is on the other side. And what this does is it builds connections in your brain, because what you're doing is something different from your regular type of studying, which is just reading. What you're doing is active learning. So you're not being passive. You're not learning in a passive way. You're being active. You're having to engage your brain and think about, okay, what is the answer to this thing? Rather than just reading, the answer's there for you and you don't have to kind of really think much. So this leads me to the next question is like, how do you do active recall sort of studying? What's the way to do it? Is it quite complicated? And it is not at all. You can simply just do it yourself. Pull up a Google Doc, write a question, write some answers. Maybe on a separate doc, and then kind of go between the two. You could do things in Notion where you could have like expandable sections. But if you look online, one of a really popular way to do that is using this app called Anki, which I had originally used a while ago, and I don't think it was very good. It looks quite basic, but once I kind of learned how to use it, and actually it's very simple to learn how to use it, I found that it was fantastic. It's such a great app that I plan to do like a lot of videos about it in the future. And it's a really good way just to kind of create flashcards. It's almost like a flashcard app. But one of the things it does is it kind of, the way it presents questions to you is based on how you're learning. So if I give you an example, for example, I'm currently learning the French sort of questions, how to ask questions. So there's the word pourquoi, which means why. So if I had a question that was like, pourquoi est-ce que tu vas travailler? Like, why are you going to work? I could have the English on one side, and then on the other side, I could have the French, and then I could try and practice that. So if I knew that quite easy, that's fine. But say if there was something like "Qui est-ce que tu travailles?", which means who do you work with? So that maybe I'm struggling with that one. So that question would then come up more frequently. So the key thing to remember is that easier questions don't show up as frequently. However, harder questions pop up more frequently. So this is a technique called space-based repetition, and you kind of use that with active recall to help you kind of learn, and it's been massively helpful for me in language learning. And you may be thinking, what about Duo Lingo? This is something that I talk a lot about, and I absolutely love Duo Lingo. I use it like every day, and that has questions, and it pretty much has this kind of active recall thing built in, because you have to answer questions all the time. And also, like, if there's something you're struggling with the paid version of Duo Lingo, I'm sure with the free version as well, it does this to some extent. The things that you're struggling with, it'll bring those to the fore much more. It'll bring those up front. The things that you're struggling with, it'll bring them over and over again, just so you get more exposure and more practice with those. But where I use Anki is to learn things that, you know, that are not part of the Duo Lingo course. So for example, I'm learning stuff with my French tutor. So, you know, Duo Lingo is not going to have the exact things that I need. It doesn't allow me to create flashcards. With Anki, it does. So I'm kind of replicating what you kind of do with Duo Lingo, but not to the same kind of extent. But I'm just doing questions. So for example, if there's French questions or something I want to learn. Another thing I'm trying to improve is Bengali, which is like my mother tongue, which is what my mum and my heritage is like Bengali. So I kind of want to just improve my Bengali numbers. I kind of forgot a lot of those. So I'm learning that as well. And I'm doing that with Anki. And I'm going to have a good video about that. And amazing thing with Anki is that you could put videos, audio, whatever you want into the app, and it will kind of play those for you. So it's like super, super helpful. Hey, if you've liked this video, please check out my other video where I talk about how to stay motivated when learning a language.